Another layout? Am I really going to build another one? Where am I going to put it? How big is it going to be? What are we going to do with it? Let's figure this out. Hello there, welcome back to Simon's Shed, and yes, I really am thinking of building another layout. After just spending 7 years building the N gauge layout in here, I'm thinking of doing a TT 120 layout. So what does it need to achieve? First of all, it needs to be a nice test loop where I can test any new TT 120 locos that I buy and review on the channel. So it needs to do that, so I'm thinking it needs to be at least one loop that I can run the trains round, run them in. I'm also thinking maybe get some radius 1 track on there so we can do a sort of tight corners test and test the locos on tighter track. But I don't just want to use it for that, I want to enjoy using it myself, and I think in that case it's going to have some shunting potential, so I'd like to get some points and some sidings in there somewhere. I mentioned this before, but it needs to be a different challenge to the N gauge layout, which was a huge complicated DCC layout. I'll probably still make it DCC sort of switchable between DC and DCC. But it's going to be a lot simpler and definitely smaller than the N gauge layout, because I don't have another shed this size that I can just build a new layout in. So on that note, I've got a lot of ideas. Let's go through them and see what you think. Say hello, Fern. She's tired. Been on a 4K run this morning, so she's having a well-earned rest. So I've looked around the house. None of the beds have enough space under them, and yeah, I'm kind of out of ideas apart from one, which is underneath this sofa. So my original idea is if we could keep this to sort of about 2.5 foot wide, maybe a little bit more, and about 5.5 foot in length. That would be enough to get a loop of track in TT gauge, and we could slide it underneath the sofa. You can probably see some wires sticking out there. The Scotsman train set is currently living under there, so what I did was drag the sofa out and cleaned the many layers of dust from under there and made it sort of surgically clean, and I've now stored the Scotsman train set under there temporarily. And then I got on the laptop and opened up Rail Modeler Pro and started designing a layout. So I perhaps should have said the reason I was looking around the house is there was this whole thing in the launch of TT about how it's small enough where, unlike 00, you don't need to be sort of relegated to the shed or the garage or the loft to build a decent size layout. So that was kind of the idea I was going for, bring it into the house, hence the idea of putting it under the sofa. So as I mentioned, I had a look around at some various layouts and I wanted some shunting potential. So quite a common shunting layout with lots of shunting potential is this kind of arrangement where you've got essentially 2 tracks coming in with 2 points, and they split off and are connected back together by another point, so you end up with 3 roads down here, and that obviously gives you a lot of potential to back a loco in here, drop some wagons off, and potentially go down here and back out the other way. And that was in the first version of my plan, and it's kind of stayed there. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that for the sort of shunting part of the layout. Let me know what you think, whether you can see any issues with that. It does all work with Hornby set track, this layout, but I think I am going to use, as I've discussed in the track comparison video, I'm probably going to be using Peco points, and this particular design is set to use the Peco flexi track and the Peco points. So these are just placeholders really for potential buildings. And then, ta-da! So I don't know whether it needs to be a double loop, but I've gone for a double loop for now. You can see, you can switch here between the two loop tracks. You can go into the shunting part here from the inner loop. And this very tight looking curve is radius 1 measurements. So that's the bit where I can test the sort of tight locos on tight bends. Yeah, that's the basic track plan. However, I'm not really sure whether to do this. Two problems. One, after I surgically cleaned underneath the sofa, less than a week later I pulled out the Scotsman train set track and it was kind of covered in dust. So yeah, it's not going to stay clean for very long at all under there. The other thing is the height. I've barely got sort of 40-50 mil height. So if you add the thickness of the sort of baseboard, what are we going to do with scenery? It's going to have to be a very flat layout. Any buildings will have to be removed and stored, and then when the layout comes back into use, they'll have to be put back on the layout. So I'm going to have to constantly be taking things on and off the layout. And also, if I put supports like bracing underneath, like you would usually do, we're literally not going to have any height left at all. Now, I did think of a innovative way of getting around that one, and that is put the supports, the bracing, on the top somehow. So these are wooden beams. The baseboard itself would be right on the floor, and these beams would sort of strengthen it up a bit, stop it bending, and then either they'd be covered in, like here you could cover them in brick paper and make that a wall, or just cover them in you know, shaper sheet or mod rock or whatever and make them part of a hill and cover them up that way, which I thought was quite a clever idea, something a bit different. But yeah, we're still left with a distinct lack of height. Let's have a look at some other options. So that's obviously the Simon shed. Potential option, but we'll come back to that in a minute. But what you won't know is I actually have built another shed about a year ago, which is here. A little bit smaller, and it does have a specific purpose, as you can probably tell by the plasterboard and lots of sound deadening and so on. It's supposed to be a soundproof shed for Oliver's drum kit. I can only apologise. Let's get back to the layout ideas. So over here we have a little bit of space that could be cleared out. It would be nice if we could get a sort of standard sized 6x3 plywood board and just use that. That would be 1.8 by 0.9 meters. So sadly we are just short of the height if we wanted to prop it up against this wall. Not the end of the world, it could be sort of leaning a bit out that way. And the width, we've easily got 0.9 across there. So that's when it's stored. When it's set up, I would put a stand here, I guess. Yeah. We've only got just over 5 feet, sadly, 1.6 meters. So unless we fairly drastically shrink the layout, I think this is going to continue to be just the drumming shed. So we're back to this shed. Let's have a think. Now, one slightly crazy idea that I had, which came to me when I was filming, based on filming some of the running sessions, where you can see there the shadow of the camera is quite prominent, and it's really you have to think quite carefully about where you put the camera to film things. Now, what a lot of people do to light their model railway is to have something, say here, with LEDs or whatever, shining down from there. I am still thinking of installing a beam across here, all the way across down to there, and then another one across there, and another one up here, and so on. And on the underside of this beam, shining down on the layout, would be some decent quality LED strips, and that would solve my problem of the shadows, because the camera would be here and the light source would be over here, so we wouldn't get any awkward shadows. And then I thought, if we're going to have beams running almost in a complete loop, why don't we just put track on top of them? Slightly wacky idea, I know, but and it would be more of a test track than a layout. I suppose you could widen it a little bit and put a little bit of scenery. It'd be a very narrow layout, but yeah, just an idea. It would certainly be a lot bigger. It wouldn't interfere with the N gauge layout, because it would be on the level above, and it would actually be helping the N gauge layout because it would be better lit. Problems, well, it's quite perilous in that it's going to be quite narrow, and if any locos fall off, the TT 120 locos are going to get damaged, and they're going to drop onto the N gauge layout and damage that. So yeah, and the other problem, of course, is there'd be a beam here, but then we'd have to somehow get the loop, connect the loop back together, so there'd be a rather awkward beam across here. Or you would just do a sort of dog bone and loop around here, have a circle here and back onto the beam. So there's that idea. Also, and this is probably more realistic, this wall here, we've got quite a lot of space there. We've got a bit of a gap here between the wall and the backboard. What about if there was a beam coming out here and another one on the other side? So a beam coming out here, and the layout would be stored with the scenery facing us, would be stored up against that wall, resting on those beams, and possibly tied to that rafter at the other end for security. So the layout would be along there like that, and then when you wanted to get it out, these beams would sort of carry on a little bit down to here, and you would pull the layout this way and it would go flatten down like that. We'd probably, so the back of the layout, as I say, would probably have to be lashed up to there or something for a bit of stability and to help me put it away and get it out easier. But yeah, let's double check the measurements. So 3 foot would only come to there, so we'd only have to put beams sticking out 3 foot there. In terms of the width, if it was right against that wall, 6 foot comes to there. In other words, it leaves a bit of space, so we could centre it up. It would be about there, which would give us just approximately, this is obviously just a sheet, so yeah, I think, let's check it properly. I think if the edge of the layout was here, 3 feet is there, which is pretty much level with the backboard, so we wouldn't even have to change the height of the backboard. Obviously there is still a slight risk of damage to the end gauge layout below, but actually I think what I would do is build it in the house and just move it to here when it's sort of ready, when it's finished, and actually store it in here. I think I could get away with it being propped up in the house somewhere while it was being built, but certainly not on a permanent basis. Now that we've got no restrictions on the height of the scenery for the potential layout, and we've got a bit more space in terms of we're going to use a standard 6 foot by 3 foot plywood board, let's go back to the Rail Modeler Pro and have another go. And this is my thinking at the moment. Not set in stone by any means. I do keep changing my mind. Let's just make this a bit bigger. You can see, main thing is we're down to a single track. So this simplifies things. It gives the, I just think it will look better. It gives the scenery more space to sort of breathe. The temptation is to just keep throwing more and more track on there, but I think this will look good with a single track, and it'll allow the scenery to come through more, and it still does everything that I need. It's also cheaper as well, because we've got less track and less points to buy, but that's not the reason. I definitely wouldn't scrimp on track and points, because you know, a layout lasts so long that you don't want to regret it, but I don't think I will. I think this is going to look, if it ends up looking anything like the image I can see in my head, I think it'll be great. The other thing, of course, is with all the points being over here, this could be the front of the layout. I can reach them all very easily, so I might not even need point motors. I might just control the points by hand. I'll probably still drill the holes for point motors and get everything ready and make sure the baseboard's sort of deep enough to take point motors, but yeah, I might not even put point motors in. Keep it simple is the theme of this one. So let me explain the bits of scenery. So the dark grey over here I'm imagining as a sort of grass with rocks sticking out of it, like a typical sort of Welsh hillsides type of thing. So quite steep, the steepest part of the layout, and you can see we've got a tunnel going through it with the tunnel portals. So that gives us a nice bit of height. The green gives us a bit of height, but it's not as high as the dark grey. This is more of a sort of gentle rolling hill, sort of sloping up towards the edges to sort of contain the layout, and up here as well, where it's high enough to have a bridge over the tracks, and this is a road. Road is probably the wrong word, a track, a lane. Not even, it doesn't even have road markings, it's just tufts of grass growing in the middle and a sort of rutted track down. Sort of dusty tarmac to a yard down here. Don't know what this building is, and I don't know what this building is. This is the exact size, as it says, of the Peco TT120 goods shed, so that could go there. And yeah, this is the sort of shunting sort of yard part of the layout. Just thinking about the signal box, this is the exact size of the Peco signal box. This might be a signal I guess this could be moved over towards the station, although it doesn't necessarily have to be. Or we could even have another signal box over there. Speaking of which, this red box is the exact size of the Peco TT 120 station building. So potentially, again, not set in stone, I could use that building there. And I think this is the sort of size of 3 sort of Hornby platform sections. Again, might build my own, but we'll see. So yeah, really simple. It's a sort of remote country station and a sort of quiet shunting yard. Very sort of traditional train set, countrified, oldie worldy. No specific date, but definitely set in the past. Maybe sort of 1950s sort of era, but not set in stone. I mean, I will run modern stuff on there when I review modern locos, so it will be used for modern stuff as well. So I think this does everything I need. I've still got the loop to run locos in and test them. I've still got the tight radius 1 curve, and I've still got the shunting bit. Obviously a lot more detail to add. I might extend this grass bank around here a bit more, or it depends what I can find to put in really, but yeah, exciting times planning a new layout. I think I'm pretty set on the 6x3 foot size, so I think I will order or go and buy some wood for the layout. B&Q don't seem to have any stock at the moment, so I might have to order it. But please let me know what you think in the comments. Any suggestions are welcome, but that's where we're at for now. And yes, exciting times, the start of a new layout. We'll leave it there for now, but subscribe to follow the progress on this one, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.